Okay, let's call.
Okay, I can hear you now.
Okay, great, thanks. All right, let's call the meeting to order at 6:46. If I would rise for the pledge. Over on this side. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, liberty and justice for all. Okay, so let's do, see, we got everybody can hear us. Andy, will you take us through the roll call, please?
Rick Jacobs,
Here.
Amanda Stanfield,
Here,
sorry, Jeske,
here.
Nathan Sturdevant here.
All right, I'd like to welcome everyone for joining tonight. We, as those present, have they had an opportunity to, board members, to look over last month's meeting minutes? And do we have any additions or corrections? Okay, could I have a motion for approval?
Make a motion.
Second.
Okay, motion stands. All in favor? Sorry.
Aye.
Aye. All right, motion stands. All right, Adam, do we have any additions or corrections to tonight's agenda?
No, ma'am.
Okay, so the first case that's up for the presentation tonight is case number 07 variance 2022, located at 436 East Staat Street. Adam, if you can get us started on the presentation, please.
All right. Good evening. For the record, I'm Adam Zaklakowski, the Planning and Building Director for the town of Fortville. Apparently, I'm also the IT guy tonight, but it's a work in progress. The first item before you tonight involves 436 East Staat Street, and it's a variance case. The owner of the property is Gateway LLC, and the zoning on the property is residential 3.5. It's currently being used as a single-family residential home. It's not occupied, though. It's under renovation. And the request is that the owners are undertaking a major renovation to this property that they recently acquired. And as part of it, they would like to construct a new detached garage on the east property line, or the alley line, instead of 5 feet away as required by the ordinance. They'd like to construct on the existing concrete pad of an old garage that was demolished on the site a few years ago by a previous owner. And a stop work order was placed on the project as garage reconstruction began without a permit. If we take a look at the aerial photo and the parcel map, you can see where the property is located. It's here in the Old Town area, just north of the railroad tracks. And it's generally west of Madison, State Route 13. We can always refer back to these exhibits as needed. If you take a look at the oblique aerial photo, you can see the house has been under renovation by previous owners and now the current owner for quite some time, but there is progress that's being made. The star that you see on the screen is where the garage would be located. And then here is a photo of the pad of the garage. This is a survey of the property here that was completed. The yellow box is where this concrete foundation is. As part of the survey, it was discovered that there's actually a 14-foot alley that runs alongside that garage. It's not shown on Beacon, and the town wasn't even aware of the alley's existence. We don't have any infrastructure in the alley, but it does exist on paper and in reality. So simply put, this variance number 1 of 1 is for the east side accessory structure setback of 0 instead of 5 feet from the property line to the roof eave as required by the zoning ordinance. And the zoning ordinance states that in this case of an accessory structure, that it shall be a minimum of 5 feet from a side or a rear property line. The pad is about a foot away from the alley line, and a 1 foot overhang would put the building at the property line itself. And setbacks are measured to the roof eaves. As I mentioned, the alley is unused by the town and there are no plans to use it. In terms of remonstrance to this request, all public hearing notice requirements have been met, which included a posting of a sign, posting of an ad in the Greenfield Reporter, and a mailing to nearby property owners. There's no known remonstrance. However, the neighbor to the east, Danelle Kessler, does not necessarily agree with the location of the property line, and there's been some dispute on that matter. So the decision criteria for variances per the zoning ordinance, which is based on state law, there's 3 different items to look at. The first one is general welfare, that the approval will not be injurious to the public health, safety, morals, and general welfare of the community. And the items in yellow is a staff opinion. My belief is that yes, that's been met. There's no issue there. A setback variance of a residential garage would not impact those items. Second test is the adjacent property test, that the use and value of the area adjacent to the property included in the variance will not be affected in a substantially adverse manner. My opinion would be that yes, that's been met. A garage had sat at this location for decades without any issues. Because of the 14-foot alley, the garage would still be outside of the alleyway and 14 feet away from the east property. And then lastly, the practical difficulty test. The strict application of the terms of this chapter of the zoning ordinance will result in a practical difficulty in the use of the property. I believe that's been met. The applicant would need to remove the existing slab and re-pour it, only to gain an additional 5 feet, which causes a practical difficulty. So my opinion would be to approve the request. The applicant's attorney, Mr. Niemier, is here. If you have any questions, I'd be more than happy to address those. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Adam. So I'm assuming you're the petitioner. If you will say and spell your name for the record.
Last name is spelled Niemier. My office is at 21 East Main Street, Development, Indiana, and I do represent Gateway LLC. On June 20th of this year, Gateway purchased this property and immediately began a fairly extensive renovation to improve both the inside and the exterior of the house. They also started to construct the garage that was on the existing foundation. They did receive notice that they needed to obtain a variance before they could proceed with that construction. So they immediately stopped, contacted me, we submitted the paperwork. And what I would like to do, and first of all, I think Adam did a wonderful job, took a lot of the wind out of my sails. Anything and everything I was going to say, I think Adam already said it. But I would like to draw your attention to page 6, which is the survey. And what I did, I highlighted in yellow the existing concrete foundation. The foundation itself is approximately 1 foot away from the 14-foot wide alley. Immediately prior to this hearing, I mentioned to Adam, requested about the possibility of seeking to vacate this alley, because this alley has not been used for a substantial amount of time. It leads to nowhere. It would be a prime candidate to be vacated. Should this alley be vacated, and I do believe that the petitioner will formally make that request to the town council so that that can be achieved. If that is vacated, by law, each property owner on each side would receive 7 feet. So that would immediately eliminate the need for the variance, but because my client would like to construct the garage as soon as possible, vacating the variance might take a little bit of time. We're here seeking the variance so that we can proceed to further improve the property with the addition of the garage. Also, Adam again did a very good job of explaining the decision criteria. And one thing I have to add for the third decision criteria, and that is that the strict application of any ordinance would result in practical difficulty in the use of the property. Another reason that that is satisfied is because moving the garage to a point that would be 5 feet away from the eastern property line would also place the garage at a point that it would prevent the vehicle from entering on the north side, because the garage would be tucked behind the house, which would impose an extremely huge burden and practical difficulty from the use of the property. And also, I would just like to note for the record that if you look at page 4 of the materials, the 14-foot alley that we believe, and the survey that we obtained shows that 14-foot alley runs immediately adjacent to the east property line. The property owner at 504 East Staat Street has, looks like it might be a utility barn, some type of small structure. By my calculation, that's actually located inside the 14-foot alley. And so at some point, they may have to seek a variance, or again, as I suggested, if we are successful in petitioning for the vacant that alley, that's going to solve their problem. And we're happy to do so. I'm happy to answer any questions, and we would request that this variance be granted.
All right, we're just going to have you have a seat, and then we'll come back to you if we have any additional questions. All right. Now we have time in our agenda for public response for or against this project. Okay, well, if you'll come up to the microphone, say and spell your name and your address for the record, please.
Kessler, AESSLER, 504 East Ave. RINARD, 504 East Ave.
Okay.
Look at this picture.
Mhm.
Property line, the property line, by law, right? County puts stakes in the ground, you get a survey, and it'll show that. Right here is their property, here's the stake right here. The driveway is encroaching on my property. If you go back, my shed is past, or well, out of that property line. This is the west side of the alleyway marker. I got it in the paper. Comes over 14 foot. That alleyway will cut my back of my house off. If you show those lines. We have it actually on our computer. If you want to see that.
Yeah, because we got our deed, which shows our, the footage, how many
Feeding
feet,
across.
Sure.
feet in the front and everything. Can I show you this computer picture?
I actually have their.
Okay. Okay. 'Cause see this, oh, I'm sorry.
Just there you go.
Okay,
See that?
Yep.
okay. Okay, the red. Okay, is, right here, the red box.
Unless it's going to be submitted into evidence, it shouldn't be considered. I mean, if there was a page you wanted to print off, but if there was.
Oh, it's a copy of the survey that you have.
Okay.
It's printed on top. We
Well,
got the survey.
is this from a GIS? What program are you getting your, what is this? Oh, what-
Beacon.
Beacon, okay.
Yeah, that's not-
Beacon,
That's not,
Well,
I know, but see the red line.
Right, but-
Beacon is the blue line.
Beacon will
Beacon is
tell
wrong.
you, Beacon will tell you, these are just guesstimates on theirs.
Yes, I'm not going by beacon line.
So we'll,
I'm going by putting, on up the legend, you pop down a legend and you put a dot and you measure over. Our front lawn is 129.9, okay? Right there, 129.9. If you connect that and you go all the way back to my railroad area, okay? It comes out to be the 270, that, well, I can't read that number there. So when you bring it over here, because on his survey, he went from the top of our property up 20 feet to go make it in the middle, okay? So I went down the 20 feet, came over 116 plus the 773 because it's cockeyed,
okay,
and then over it comes up to 129.9.
okay, I
And
understand.
it goes back, and our whole purpose is we're getting a privacy fence.
Okay,
And by law, you run a privacy fence along your property line. We
okay,
do that, it takes off their driveway.
okay. What we deal with is what the survey, the actual surveys. We
The
can't,
survey is, correct, incorrect. You can look at
okay,
it and you
okay,
will see that it's
so let's,
totally off.
let's back up a little bit here. So we can only go off of the surveys that are on record. If you have a dispute with that, Adam, correct me if I'm wrong, that's not for us to decide. We can only deal with surveys on record.
Okay, and another reason why they can't do their garage is because we can't,
Okay,
we
Um,
can't add on to our home if they build a garage there.
okay, I've heard,
That's
I've
that.
heard you. Okay. All right, well, thank you, Doe, for bringing this up. Let's, okay, we have it on record of your objection because you feel like there's a dispute in the property lines. I think that needs to go back to a surveyor to,
Well, I asked Acura, because Acura was the one that did theirs, and he said no, it's gonna be a conflict of
Okay.
interest.
okay,
Some of them, and they're out until next year.
okay, all right. You have those notes? Do I have anyone else that's objecting to this?
I was about to say,
All right, we have to come back up to the microphone, please.
this take long, no, this won't take long at all. Okay, apologize. The whole reason why this even happened, I'm their neighbor. I noticed they moved in. I went over there, I said, ma'am, I was just wanting to let you know that the previous owner, before the owner they bought the house off of, did destroy the land right there on between our house and where you can see the gravel. And there is a hill that goes like this steep. Okay, I said, can I come over there and level the ground out back the way it was? She said, no, you do. I'm calling my attorney. I'm calling Adam. Adam will come out here and watch. I will come out here and watch the dirt work done. You will not do it. I will see you go to the town of Fortville. That's all we wanted to do is flatten our land. We had no problem with the garage being built, driveway being used. He threatened us with court, having an attorney and everything. And that's why we're even here.
All right,
Just because I wanted to flat my land down, I had pictures showing how flat it was before, unfortunately, these addicts had that tore up that property away.
okay,
And that's what started it all. It nothing to do with property lines. I just didn't want to do something that was illegal.
okay,
That would cause me
all right,
harm in it.
all right, thank you. We have the two concerns down. If we don't have any more objections, then I am going to have the petitioner come back up and address what you've heard.
Again, referring to 6 site plan survey. It's prepared by Indiana licensed surveyor. This isn't beacon, it's nobody guessing the property. I want to make sure that perhaps Mr. Kessler, Mr. Bernard, and Ms. Kessler don't understand. There is right now an existing 14-foot alley that is between these two properties. The shed is within that. I
It
also
takes
want-
our house off.
Okay,
I want
let
to
him
make
speak,
sure
please.
that everything is crystal clear. The petitioner is not requesting for its property line to be moved or for the alley. to
Right.
be moved. It's exactly the opposite. as I indicated earlier, we anticipate we will be petitioned for that, which is going to pertain these.
All right, let him speak. He's, the person at the mic is the one that gets to speak.
Portion of our house is within the alley. Shed is absolutely within the alley. We're looking to solve a problem that exists on both sides.
Okay. I understand that the problems here, it sounds like it's a property line dispute. But we're here today for the variance. And so that's kind of what we need to stick with.
That Still, the prior owner removed the garage. There was, for many years, a garage structure on the exact foundation, the exact same.
How
location.
long ago was that removed?
We think years ago, that's just what we have been doing.
Okay.
But the existing foundation, that's all we are looking to do, is to construct a garage where there had been a garage. Without incident between.
Okay. All right. Thank you. We have time for government officials. Do any of you have any comments, questions? I'm seeing shaking of heads, so that's a no on that one. All right. Do we have any questions from Adam? I've got a couple. Do you have some?
I'll go ahead and let you lead.
Okay. All right.
Yes or no.
Am I to understand, Adam, that tonight's variance is on site plans that are recorded as they are today? If there's a dispute on property lines, then that will have to be taken up by the other property owner, and that comes at a different entity and a different board?
Well, I think to answer the question, and Alex, feel free to chime in, is that garage, by all accounts, and I don't think it's being contested by the neighbors either, if I'm not mistaken, is that the garage is entirely on the property of 436 East Staat. There's some debate as to whether or not this alley exists. And I think they're understandably concerned about what the ramifications could be if they want to put up a fence or if they want to add on to the house,
Right.
Which are all valid.
Absolutely.
But
yes.
I think that the fact of the matter is that the garage, as they're proposing, would be in the same spot where it's been, which is on their private property. And in terms of this, the survey, I don't know that this survey has actually been recorded. It was done by a professional surveyor. Sometimes surveys get recorded, sometimes they don't. I believe it has to do with the type of survey that it is, but at least because it was done by a professional surveyor, we're inclined to go off of that as opposed to what you may find on Beacon.
Right.
On
Right.
the GIS mapping. So
Right.
certainly if there was another surveyor that had a different survey, we would take that into account. But I think for the time being, we would go with that professionally done survey, if that answers the question.
And then I have a second question. So I noticed that there is somewhat of a curb cut already there. Is that within their property, or is that a curb cut that would have gone to the alley? Or
I think I don't know for a fact the history behind that, but from talking to Ms. Kessler and
Mhm.
knowing what happened in the past is that that curb cut was put in when they redid Madison Street. And I think they presumed that it was, maybe they either had plans that showed it was an alley or a driveway at the least. And they put in that curb cut. So it would seem that the curb cut is basically to this quote unquote alley.
Okay.
That's there.
okay, so it really has the parcel that we're looking at today for the garage. They have they'll create their own driveway or enhance the driveway that's there.
Right, and part of that is within this alleyway. So the only thing, we don't have to, it's out of the scope of today's
Okay.
review, but
That's what I'm trying
if
to get
the,
at.
if the alley were to be vacated, we would have to see what effect that would have on,
Okay.
on driveway access.
Yes.
For that, for 436.
And the vacating the alley is not in our, that's not on our agenda or purview or that's.
Right, and that would
that's
be a
someone else.
council matter.
Yes,
Mhm.
okay. All right, Nathan, do you have any questions?
That's, I think that addresses kind of what I was looking at there. So, I mean, it's an issue, I think that solves some problems, but opens up others potentially with drive access and splitting up the alley, but that's not
Right,
what we're looking at
that's-
tonight. So I
right,
think,
that's not the scope of work
Right.
today.
given the variance, yeah, I'm clear.
Okay, Rick, do you have anything to add?
No, I'm good. I think the same things you asked were the questions I had.
Okay. Let's see, questions, clarifications. All right, well, we've heard the presentation. Do we have a motion from any of the board members that would like a motion to approve or deny?
I'll make a motion for case number 07, variance 2022, 436 East Stat Street, to approve the variance as stated.
Second,
Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
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 All right, motion carries. Give us 1 minute here to fill out our paperwork.
I just didn't know what next step. That was my curiosity.
I would say circle back around with Adam probably Monday for further questions on that, because I don't know, because it's not within the Board of Zoning purview. I'm going to pass you on to Adam.
Okay.
He'll get you the help. Yeah. All right, let's go on then to the second case. Thank you so much. The second case up tonight is number 08, variance 2022 at 9168 North 200 West. Adam, could you give us the presentation on that, please? If you guys want, you can just have a seat. I'll call you up. Yeah, that way you're not standing the whole time during the presentation. Yeah.
Less professional.
Yeah, no worries.
All right, for the next case tonight, the location of the property is at 9168 North 200 West. The owners of the property are Chris and Elizabeth McCreight. And the zoning on the property was recently annexed into the town is rural residential, RR. The property is currently being used as a single-family residential home. And Mr. and Mrs. McCreight are undertaking a major renovation of this property and that they recently acquired. And as part of it, they would like to expand the legal non-conforming gravel driveway and construct a new detached garage on the south property line instead of 5 feet away as required by ordinance. So if we take a look at the parcel map, you can see that the property is on the west side of 200. It's north of the Mount Vernon North neighborhood, north of the school district campus. And here is an aerial photo of the property. You can see that there is the main structure in the middle, and then there is a shed that's at the corner of the property. And then here is an oblique aerial of the property that, of course, we can refer back to. Here was a photo of the property before it was renovated. They did receive all of the permits that they needed to do that renovation. So that's underway right now. And then here's the request specifically. You can see that they're hoping to put in a U-shaped driveway. The area in purple that you see would be where the gravel would be located. And then the pole barn or the garage would be located in the southwest portion of the property where you see the yellow area. And then here is an example of what the garage would look like. So variance number 1 would be to allow expansion of that gravel driveway that they have today. The zoning ordinance states that new gravel driveways shall only be allowed in the agricultural zoning district. And the zoning on this property, as I mentioned, is rural residential, not agricultural. And this was a standard that went into effect with the adoption of the Fortville zoning ordinance back in January of 2020. So that existing gravel driveway is a legal non-conforming use. And the ordinance says that no legal non-conforming site feature shall be altered, removed, or otherwise modified in a manner that increases the amount of nonconformity. And so for building expansion on a site with nonconforming site features, every reasonable attempt as defined by the planning director shall be made to upgrade the site and building accordingly to the provisions of this ordinance. So again, much like the last case, the 3 different tests is the first one is on general welfare. I say that yes, that's been met. That it's not going to be injurious to public health. Any dust that would be generated by this additional gravel driveway would be negligible. In terms of the adjacent property and as it relates to this gravel driveway variance, I'd say that yes, that test has been met. Allowing expansion of a gravel driveway wouldn't negatively impact adjacent property values or uses. And then lastly, in terms of a practical difficulty, I'd say that that test has been met. Paving of the driveway has been stated by the applicant to be expensive, which is understandable. And this property is fairly large. It's over 1.5 acres, and it does have a rural feel to it. So with that, on this variance, my recommendation would be to approve it with the condition that the applicant shall pave the driveway approach with concrete or asphalt per the utility and street standards of the town. I believe the applicant has already stated that they do that, but we just wanted to get that into the record. And then variance number 2 would be a south side accessory structure setback of 0 feet instead of 5 feet from the property line to the roof eave as required. And as we mentioned in the previous case, the same provision applies here, is that the structure shall be a minimum of 5 feet from a side or rear property line, and that goes to the roof eave. The applicant asserts that they have an easement on the property to the south. However, and it may be the case, but no proof of this easement has been provided to the town. The applicant would like to have as large of an open area as possible for the backyard, for views and for separation from the home. All the public hearing notice requirements have been met, the sign posting, the newspaper publication, and the mailing, and there's no known remonstrance. However, the town has not heard of the perspective of the adjoining property owner to the south, one way or the other. Again, in terms of the 3 different tests, the general welfare test, I'd say that yes, it's been met, that a setback variance of a residential garage on the size of these lots would not impact those items. For adjacent properties, I'd say that yes, that's been met. Both this property and the one to the south are large. This property is about 1.55 acres. The adjacent property to the south is 1 acre. There's also a tree line between the properties. And the use of the accessory structure as a garage is likely not a noxious use. For the practical difficulty standard, my professional opinion would be that no, it hasn't been met. The applicant's property is large. It's about an acre and a half, and the width of the property is about 230 feet. So a 5-foot separation can be met in this case without a practical difficulty. And a 5-foot separation would allow for maintenance of the structure without trespassing onto adjacent property. Certainly the caveat is I can appreciate and understand their logic behind it. But my recommendation would be to deny variance number 2. So with that, if you have any questions, I'd be more than happy to address them, and the applicants are here as well. Thank
Okay.
you.
All right, thanks, Adam. All right, we now have time for the petitioner to come up. If you'll say and state your name and your well, we know your address. Yeah, if you have anything additional to add past what Adam has already stated.
I'm Liz McCreight.
Chris.
Thank you.
So yeah, as Adam mentioned, we were annexed earlier this year to the town of Fortville. We're currently Fortville residents in downtown here, and we want to continue to be Fortville residents, look through that process. Now we're trying to abide by the Fortville rules. I think it's worth mentioning the gravel driveway is, I guess in our eyes, more of a temporary variance approval. We do hope to pave it someday. We are undergoing a major renovation, as Adam mentioned. We're not only going down, we're building a basement underneath the portion of the house, but we're also going to go up, and that is the house. So there are a lot of upfront costs here. But our long-term goal would be to put some sort of hard surface, concrete, and or asphalt driveway. We don't mind at all taking those approaches for those aprons and abiding by that regulation.
I was just getting ready to ask that. Okay.
Which I believe is grandfathered in.
All right. Any comments on variance 2 of the setbacks?
Yeah. Yeah, Adam, if you can go to the slide. Yeah, so
We understand Beacon versus through
Right.
survey.
plot plan.
We have reason to believe that this is actually inaccurate.
Sure.
But it is accurate, because it actually gains us 15 feet. What direction is that?
We had a survey when we closed on the property last year from Manship and Associates out of Anderson. Granted, it was completed in 1990, so it's been some time. We have, yes, that's correct.
That's the plot plan that you're referring to.
Which actually shows 198 feet of road frontage versus the 230 feet that Adam mentioned earlier.
Calculated.
So the 198 is what we are going off of here.
Okay.
I'm in the construction industry. I understand that Beacon is a representation of the
Right.
plot lines, not by any means accurate. So the 198 is what we're going after, going off of, and which actually, so go back to slide number 4 again. So, which actually puts our property line about 35 feet short of the blue line. There's 30 to 34, or 34, 35 feet here of supposedly a quote unquote easement.
Which we maintain. It's on our side of their fence.
Okay.
And heavily wooded line.
We have questioned the elderly couple we purchased the home from, we questioned Hancock County, we questioned the town of Fortville. Nobody has any record of that 34, 35 feet. If you look at Beacon, it looks like we own it. If you look at the plot plan that actually was completed by a licensed surveyor, we don't own it.
So there's still some question there, but what we're going after tonight is if this plot plan is accurate, which we don't have any reason to think it's not, currently, then we would like to build, if there's, the property line would be here, we would like to build that pole barn, that garage on the property line, which moves it 5 feet further from our house, which is getting added onto on that corner as well, that southwest corner. From a, as Pat mentioned, an aesthetic standpoint, functionality.
Okay.
Doable, like,
Okay,
without, but dreams of pools and future plans,
Right.
I'd like that 5 feet.
But we're not here to dispute those.
right, right. There's not much we can do about that, but we're here for the setbacks. Right. Right.
That's what we submitted for permitting for the renovation of the home, the pole barn, the property. So that's what should be, I guess, logged by the building department here.
Okay.
That plot plan is-
And that's the one, Adam, you would use when you look at drawings?
Yeah, there's
Well-
actually a.
Yes.
Yes, okay, the 190, okay. Okay,
But Adam, going back, when you put the verbiage up there, you actually refer to 230 feet, which does mean you kind of went off of. correct?
Probably, yeah. Yeah. I understand more clearly now that we've walked through this and I see what the issue is. They're basically,
Right, so the.
as I understand it, and hopefully the board, is that the beacon is showing it as larger, the property larger than it really is. So the edge of the roof would probably be, you're saying about 30 feet from that tree line?
Yes.
Okay, I understand now.
Which
Yeah.
would give us plenty of room for the maintenance, of the pole barn without getting on to a neighboring property. I actually have walked over and tried to introduce myself to the neighbor south, with no response yet. To see if they knew, where that tree property might be.
But as of now, we maintain that. On the other. So we're just asking to get closer to that and find, but it was still, like I said, 30 feet.
all right, we may call you back up for additional questions here. So now I have time for a public response for or against this either one of the variances, one or two. Okay, I take that as a no. We have time for government officials. Do either of you have any comments or questions? Okay, that's a no. All right, now we have time for clarifications and questions from the board to either Adam or to the petitioner. I have a couple, of course. So, you would be going off of the site plan that's recorded, the plat that's recorded at the 193 feet when you hand out the building permit for this pole barn. I guess I'm looking for a yes or a no on
Correct.
that.
Yes.
That's a yes, okay. With this alleyway variance, what, or the easement that's in question. Now that, does that change the staff recommendation any at all?
Yeah, I'd say so. As long as what they're saying is, and I'm sure it is accurate,
Right,
that simply put, there'd still be 30 feet or so from the tree line to the edge of the garage. I think that makes sense to me.
okay. So then if we went by this recorded plat staff recommendation would be that on the south side, they could go to 0? Because
That's where I'd like clarification.
as
In-
long
in-
as-
In the last case, it was clearly identified as an alley. We knew what the use was. In this case, it seems like it's a bit nebulous, that we don't know if the easement, could it be property of the southern property owner? And now are we right back in a spot where we're on the property line?
Yeah, you're exactly right. That's the only trade-off, is that if for some reason there's not an easement that's in place,
then we're right on their
then
property.
it's right on the property line. And again, if they ever needed to maintain the property on the south side, it could, and they have neighbors that maybe they don't get along with, that could be an issue.
Well, one of the options could be obviously voting on one seems pretty clear cut, variance 1, variance 2. We could table it or postpone it if the applicant would like to chase after that easement. And that might make a difference,
More information.
more information,
Yeah.
but if they
Yeah.
need an answer tonight, we'll just have to vote according to this one.
Right.
Unfortunately.
Amanda, if I could, another possibility that you could do tonight along the same lines of tracking down the information on the easement is you could vote and, for example, vote to approve variance 2, but subject to petitioner providing Adam or the town satisfactory evidence of the existence of the easement. And that way they don't have to come back. We don't have to table it.
Okay, I like that. Okay. Okay. Give you a minute to catch up. Rick, do you have any comments?
No, I think that secondary thing that Alex said is a good idea.
Okay. Okay, are you caught up, Nathan?
Yes.
Okay, all right, then, do I have a board member that's ready to make a motion? And let's do this on each one separately. So do I have a motion for variance 1, which is, glasses on again, the gravel driveway, and with the condition of the approach?
Oh, that's right, that is conditional.
You want to, can we flip back to that? Oh, we already did.
Yeah. Sure, yeah, I'll make a motion to approve case number 08, VAR 2022-9168 North 200 West, variance number 1, with the condition that the applicant shall pave the driveway approach with asphalt or concrete per the town's utility and street standards.
Okay, do I have a second?
Second,
All in favor?
Aye.
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 All right, motion passes. Okay, can I have a motion for variance 2 of 2?
Okay, I will
Okay.
make a motion to approve case number 08 VAR 2022-9168 North 200 West, variance number 2, the detached garage side setback, conditional to with the condition that the applicants will provide the town proof of the assumed or stated easement.
What do we want to do about that? This,
I think they're meeting all setback, right?
oh,
I think they're
hold that
meeting-
one. Are we meeting the south setback?
It's only the south setback, correct? You're shifting just to the south. You're gonna keep the 5 foot from the back property line.
Okay, I'm sorry.
Okay.
Continue. I'm sorry.
No, okay. So conditional, with the condition that the applicants will provide proof of the easement to the town.
Okay, do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes. Okay, give us a minute to catch up on our paperwork here.
Right on this one.
Yeah. Okay. Now to get started on this. All right. I'm not done yet.
It's the town's utility and
I gotta find the next.
street
one.
standards.
Oh.
Thank you.
Got too much paper here. My well stack. All right, and our third and final case for the evening is case number 09, variance 2022, Mount Vernon Community School Corporation. Adam, can you give us the presentation, please?
All right, so for this particular case, Mount Vernon Schools is the applicant. And the location of the case is east of 200 West and north of State Route 234. Of course, the Mount Vernon Community School Corporation is the petitioner. And the zoning on the property is institutional. Current use of the property is agricultural and undeveloped. And the applicant is seeking approval of development standards variances related to curbs, landscaping, and buffer yards. The current Fortville Elementary School, which is on the west side of 200 West, would be converted into an intermediate school, and a new Fortville Elementary would be built on the east side of 200. And then this project also includes construction of a new transportation center or bus garage near the northeast corner of the property. As part of the project, they would demolish the current transportation building and the staff health center, which is south of the administration building, and they'd replace that with parking. And this is an $84 million project, which has been reviewed by the school board and has been part of an overall growth plan prepared by the school district to meet the needs of a growing student body. For the concept plans, which included the site plan, the landscaping, the building elevations, and the lighting, that was all approved by the Plan Commission on August 30th. And at that meeting, it was mentioned to the Plan Commission that the BZA would need to review and approve a few variances related to buffer yards and curbs. And so if we take a look at the aerial photo parcel map, you can see the area that we're talking about covered in red. It's about a 96 acre area, which includes the existing middle school and the administration building that you see on the map. If we take a look at the zoning map, you can see the gray is institutional, which is generally intended for government uses. And then of note to the east is the Mount Vernon Point subdivision, which is zoned residential 1.0 in unincorporated Hancock County. This was the actual concept site plan, the landscape plan that was approved in August. And you can see the bus parking, you can see the transportation center, you can see the elementary school. And pay particular attention to the pond and the plantings that are shown around the pond. And then also take a look at the private loop drive and then the areas around the pond towards the south end of the site. And if we take a look at the concept site plan, the landscape now, the current exhibit, which has been modified a bit, you can see the plan that the school district is proposing near the pond at the northeast side. And then you can also see the buffer yards that are planned along the southeast portion of the property. So the first variance, 1 out of 3, is they're seeking to reduce the requirement to provide curbing around all of the parking areas. And the Fortville zoning ordinance requires that curbing be provided around entrances, drive aisles, parking lots, things of that nature, including in institutional zoning districts. So the intent of the school district is to generally provide curbing at drive entrances and around parking lot islands, but not to provide that curbing around all of the areas. And the school contends that this would result in a cost savings of over $200,000 to taxpayers for this particular project. In terms of the remonstrance to this particular variance, all public hearing notice requirements have been met like the other cases in terms of the sign posting, newspaper publication, and the mailing. And there's no known remonstrance to this particular variance on curbs. So if we go through the general test first in terms of general welfare, I believe it meets that test. A variance regarding curbs would likely not impact public health, safety, or morals. For adjacent property, I believe that test has been met, that no adjacent properties would be adversely impacted by relaxing regulations on curbing. And then lastly, in terms of practical difficulty, I think, yes, that's been met, that the cost to taxpayers for curbing could be saved or better used elsewhere in the project. And some curbing will still be provided, as I had mentioned. So my recommendation on this first variance is to approve that. For the second variance, they're seeking relief to install lot interior plantings based on the formula that's prescribed by the zoning ordinance. And so for an institutional use, they're technically required to install 1 tree for every 3,000 square feet of yard area. The petitioner intends to install many trees and shrubs throughout the site and in parking lots and buffer yards. However, because of the large area of the property, which I had mentioned is over 96 acres, the petitioner contends that the requirement would put a financial burden on taxpayers. Again, this one, all the public hearing notice requirements have been met, and we're not aware of any remonstrance to this particular variance. So in terms of the test, the general welfare test, I think, yes, that's been met. Allowing relief from this standard would likely not impact public health, safety, or morals, or general welfare. In terms of adjacent properties, on this variance, I think that's been met, that relief would not impact adjacent properties, as this property will still be well landscaped based on the overall concept plan. And then the third item would be practical difficulty. I'd say, yes, that's been met. Again, because of the large size of the property and attempting to be responsible with taxpayer funds, this standard would prove to be practically difficult. So my recommendation would be to approve that second variance. And then for the third one, they're seeking relief from providing the full scope of requirements for a type 3 buffer yard in select areas. So according to the zoning ordinance, they have to provide where we have residential zoning, a 25-foot wide area outside of any easements to include 2 deciduous trees and 2 evergreen trees per 50 feet of boundary, plus shrubs along 50% of the yard, plus a mound or fence. So specifically, and we can come back to that exhibit, along the north property line, they simply want to keep the vegetation, the tree line that's in place, and they're not looking to put any supplemental vegetation or a mound or fence in that area. And so north of the north property line, the agricultural field is zoned residential 3.5. Along the east property line, they're looking to do no mound and no fence. The plan is to install trees and shrubs, but not in a lineal fashion along the east side of the pond, as existing vegetation is along some of the eastern boundary. And then along the southeast property line, they'd adhere to the standard, but may not do a mound or fence to accommodate drainage. So again, here was the exhibit that we were talking about. You can see the trees in this area along the pond. In terms of remonstrance to variance number 3, again, all the public hearing notice requirements have been met. Mr. David Strands, who lives at 8270 North Mount Vernon Way, his property is adjacent to the east near the proposed pond. And he's concerned about the lack of buffering, concerned about noise from buses backing up, and contends that the county surveyor's office has cleared vegetation near the county regulated drain in the past for maintenance, so it may happen again in the future. So I wanted to point out, if you look at this area over here, or it's shown as grass, this is all a county regulated drain. And so the buffer yard would need to stay out of that area anyway as part of the buffer yard standards. And then that county regulated drain also continues this area where the cursor is as well. So they're keeping the plants and the shrubs out of that area. So for variance number 3, again, on those 3 tests for general welfare, I'd say that yes, it's been met. A deviation from the buffer yard standards would not necessarily impact public health, safety, morals, or general welfare. In terms of adjacent property, the use and the value of the area adjacent to the property included in the variance will not be affected in a substantially adverse manner. I'd say that it's somewhat questionable based on concerns that were raised recently from the neighbor. The transportation center and bus parking could have somewhat of a negative impact to neighboring residential properties if it's not well screened. And then for practical difficulty, I say that yes, it's been met, that some practical difficulty because of the size of the eastern pond that's needed and the size of the transportation center is understandable. So my recommendation, again, based on understandable concerns from the neighbor, is to approve the request for variance number 3 with one exception, that the number of trees and shrubs prescribed by the type 3 buffer yard standard shall be provided along the entire north-south length of the eastern side of the pond. And that's mainly due to the fact that basically we're talking about in this area right here. Fill that in. The landscape designers understandably thought that the foliage that's there right now would provide ample protection. But in my opinion, as the neighbor pointed out, that the county has in the past gone through and cleared that vegetation and may do that again. There's no guarantee that that would stay in place. So simply put, the relief from having to provide a 25-foot wide buffer could be relaxed. But in terms of the number of trees and shrubs, my recommendation would be to go ahead and put it in that area. So with that, if you have any questions, I'd be more than happy to address those questions. And I know the development team from the school district is here as well. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Adam. All right, do we have a representative of the petitioner here tonight that would like to come up and add any additional comments? Okay, great. Just state your name and spell it, please, and how you represent the school.
I'm Greg Wade, WADE. I'm a context design for the landscape architects, land planners for the school corporation. Thank you all
Thanks.
for taking the time here. Thank you, Adam, for the run through. A couple small items I'd like to point out, just additional clarification. Adam has the site plan up on that far east property line, adjacent to the transportation center. One of the requirements in the ordinance is berm or a fence. And the way our pond berm or pond bank is rated, it does actually also provide the berm along that whole length. So if we do consider extending the vegetation, we'll have the full plan and giving the grade. And then additionally, with regard to the southeast area, that's mostly adjacent to neighboring church property, we've been in coordination with them to grade our side of the site in a way that allows us to cooperate with them in the future and have a shared swale for drainage should their project come online. That's part of the decision there, to not do the berm, to help kind of work through the stormwater management with the neighbor as well, plus some of the site line concerns we have. That's our drive.
Okay, all right, thank you. We may call you back up here if we have any other additional clarifications. So we have time for public response for or against this project. You'll come up and state your name, spell it, and address if you're a homeowner.
Sure, my name is Dave Strantz, STRANC. Live at 8270. Person that had spoke up.
Oh,
the
okay.
neighbor. And I agree with what Adam said. So I just wanted to add just a little bit more so you're aware. I was at this meeting 3 months ago with several of my neighbors. And they all came to this meeting with concerns about visual barriers, sound barriers, light pollution. And we were thrilled that the proposed plan accounted for all those things. My neighbors are able to be here tonight, but I just wanted to kind of bring up the fact that we felt like everything was covered last time. We were a little concerned when we felt like this popped up, and now all of a sudden these things that we liked are. I'll also add that a very initial meeting that I mentioned at last meeting was an online meeting that the school conducted when they were first trying to figure out what they were going to do. And I mentioned at the last meeting, I asked Dr. Parker and the team that he found the call what they were planning to do in order to be good neighbors with the neighborhood. And he and their team explained that there would be planted trees, and that the buses would be designed in a way that they would be backing up and making some noises. That's the one thing that we were a little concerned about last time. The buses have been redesigned to where they have the potential to be backing up now. The only real, I noticed that when Greg came up, he explained that there is an existing berm now that wouldn't need to be changed because it's already there. That, because I can see it in my backyard, that berm is actually not blocking the pond. The berm is blocking from the other side of the pond, blocking the transportation center. And I think my neighbors and I are okay with that. We felt like the original plan would be some sort of berm blocking the pond itself. The only concern that we would have about that is if there is a fence around the pond. Having a chain link fence in some is going to be a chain fence around the pond, we would prefer that the visible barrier is in front of that chain link fence, meaning, closer to the property line, as opposed to where it is right now between the pond and the park.
Amanda, can I ask a favor?
Yes.
Can we have the person speak into the microphone? I cannot hear him.
Is it on?
Okay, Adam's checking on that now.
I can hear him, but I can't hear him very well. He's turning, I think he's turning his head or something, and I cannot hear most of what he's saying.
Okay. On our
Sorry
end,
about that. Sorry
that's
about
okay.
that.
On our end, it sounds just like all of the other ones, so
Yeah.
maybe a battery issue. I know we're checking it out.
Okay.
Got our IT expert on it.
Yeah, we got our IT expert on it.
Mic check, 1, 2. All right.
Okay, we won't make you repeat it all, but
Sure. Can you hear me better now?
Much better.
Okay. I should have just picked it up and talked. I will basically just sort of summarize briefly in indicating that we, as neighbors, representing our neighbors, we were initially very thrilled with the idea of all the regulations that were presented at the meeting last time, and are just concerned that the visual barriers and sound and light barriers are potentially going away. And so I just wanted to make sure that that was brought up, and we agree with what Adam said. So no issues there. The only thing that I wanted to bring to everybody's attention was when Greg brought up the fact that there is an existing berm there right now in the construction process. What I can see from my backyard is that berm is actually not preventing us from seeing the pond. It's preventing us from seeing the bus transportation center, because that berm is on the other side of the pond, which is completely fine with my neighbors and I, unless there's going to be a chain link fence that's around the pond. And in that case, we don't want to see the chain link fence or any of the trash or debris or other unsightly things that might be collecting in that pond area.
okay, all right, thank you. Yeah, that was so much better.
Yeah.
Again, it's all a learning curve in the new facility. Okay, we have time for the petitioner to come back up and address, wait a minute. Hold on, did I forget something?
I think we're good.
Oh, let's try one. Let's try. Government officials, do you have any comment or question? Okay, we have a shake of head no. All right, now I'm ready for the petitioner to come back up and address any of the questions that you've heard.
Thank you. Thanks for the technology department.
Yeah.
Thanks for the comments. One point of clarification there, the berm that I was trying to explain, the final built works will have the berm included in it. What's under there or what's out there today is well under construction. I can't speak to where the dirt piles are just yet with all the Tonka toys that are out there moving dirt. But the final product will have a berm on the east side of the pond. And that's where our vegetation will be. We're absolutely amenable to trying to work the chain link fence. It'll be black vinyl coated, so have a nice finish to it, likely. Work that fencing in and around the vegetation, so it's not the first thing you see on there. So we'll work on that from a design and layout perspective. That's a great comment. And the bus circulation in that zone, and frankly, and all the proposed locations on the campus, the bus stalls and dimensions are designed so that the buses can pull into those stalls and continue moving forward without having to back up. So short of a test scenario at maintenance shop, the bulk of those buses will not be backing up as part of their regular activities. Yeah, they would typically kind of move those out kind of in a sequence like that together.
Okay.
See if I missed anything.
Buses, fence, berm location. No, I think think those were, we have a,
I'm part of this team,
yep, please come up again, say and state your name.
Good evening, I'm Jack Parker, Mount Vernon Superintendent, PARKER, and Mr. Wade is the top-notch landscape architect. I just wanted to add, I absolutely understand those concerns, and we'd be very amenable to adding the vegetation typically that would be added based on Adam's recommendation, because we understand that. And we would position it to make that as visually pleasing for you as possible. So we'll absolutely not have any issues with Adam's recommendation.
Okay, thank you. Let's see here. Time for questions from the board here to Adam or any of them. I have one, of course. This type 3 buffer, Adam, that we're talking about. It's talking about a number of trees and shrubs and things like that. Is that also included, fencing is also included in that type 3 buffer, or is that in addition to?
As part of the type 3 buffer, you have to do either a mound or a fence. You'd have to do one or the other
Okay.
ordinarily.
Do you have any? Nathan, do you have any questions?
I think so. I
Okay.
think this was answered.
Okay,
That's gonna be addressed and
okay.
yeah, I think I'm good.
All right. Well, we're going to break this down into 3, just like we've done before. So in the, let me get my paperwork here. In the curb variance, 1 of 3, do I have a motion for that one?
For case number 09, VAR 2022, variance number 1, curbing, I make a motion to approve the variance.
Do I have a second?
I second that. I second
Okay,
that.
all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right. Now we're looking at variance number 2 of 3, and this is regarding the landscaping. Let's see.
Trees, right? It's percentage of
The
trees
the
per,
trees on the north, was it on the north side?
I think it's just percentage of trees planted per.
Oh, yes.
Square footage, right, of the yard area
Yes. Okay, do I have a
throughout the
motion?
property.
throughout, yeah. I will make a motion to approve case number 09, VAR 2022, variance number 2 for landscaping, particularly trees planted throughout the property.
Okay, do I have a second?
Second.
All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion passed. That leaves us to 3 of 3, which is the buffer yard. Now, we've had some discussion on this. And I think staff recommendation suggested a condition. So do I have a motion with a possible condition?
I will make a motion to approve case number 09, VAR 2022, variance number 3. With the condition that the number of trees and shrubs be provided along the entire north-south length of the east side of the pond.
Second.
All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes. All right. Let's see here. Well, I think that concludes, I will get these signed here in a minute, but that concludes everything that's on our agenda tonight. I want to thank everybody for coming. Do I have a motion to dismiss? Oh, here it's,
I will make a motion to dismiss at 8:05.
do I have a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries. Thank you all for coming.
All right, thanks, everybody. Happy Thanksgiving.
Okay, give us a minute here too, because I've got to